Welcome to the Business SOS podcast. This is Rich Sierra, President of the Florida Small Business Legal Center. This is episode 118 of the Business SOS podcast. Thank you for your support and listening to me. I hope the information that I'm providing to you is helpful to you and your business. So picture this, and I've alluded to this topic a few times, but I'm going to focus on this a little bit more today. So say you have a business, and then somebody, say there's a restaurant, and somebody unfortunately slips and falls in your restaurant, and then you do everything you can to make the person comfortable. You offer medical attention. The person say doesn't need the medical attention. The customer leaves, and then 30 days later you get a demand letter from an attorney claiming all kinds of physical injuries. The person perhaps sprained their ankle or broke their leg. Whatever the case may be, but you get this demand letter showing some pictures, some bruises, and demanding $100,000 worth of damages, and seeking the information from your insurance company. These scenarios are very common, especially dealing in retail or dealing with the public. It also deals in business to business as well, dealing with contracts. So what do you do in this case? Obviously, you call your attorney first. That's the first thing you do when you receive a demand letter from a law firm demanding some type of relief from your business, whether it's money or some type of action. It's something that I do not recommend you handle yourself, especially when there's an attorney on the other side. So you call your attorney. The first thing that, when somebody calls me, I ask whether or not you have insurance. And most of the time, if you're leasing, you probably have insurance, or you should have. In fact, that letter that you received from this law firm claiming injuries for their client, and most likely was sent to your landlord as well. And then your landlord will send that letter to you, requesting indemnification and defense. So today we're going to talk about insurance, the types of insurance policies that every small business should have. And I'm not here to sell you insurance. It's not something that I do, but I'm going to touch upon some of the types of insurance that I believe you should consider, and also recommend that you talk to your business insurance broker and discuss some of these to see if he or she feels that are important, necessary for your business. So the first one goes without saying is general liability insurance. General liability, in essence, covers that. I mean, you have, any type of, somebody gets injured in your business, somebody's claiming some type of injury. In some cases, you have advertising injury, meaning that somebody felt that there was some type of deceptive practice or some false advertising. In some cases, that is also covered. What is important to know here is that it's important to look at the policy and look at the exclusions of that policy. And that's sometimes overlooked. I've had situations where you have that the customer fills out the application, or fills out, I need insurance for my business, and then they submit the application, and they tell the insurance agent, I need coverage for professional liability, which we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. I need coverage in the case there's a business interruption, or in the case that, I cannot, there's some type of flood or some type of disaster which prevents me from paying the rent. And sometimes what happens is that the policy, the application, or what the request from the agent is not submitted properly to the insurance company. So you think, okay, I have coverage. You pay your premium. You say I have coverage, but you never read the policy to ensure that what you requested from your insurance agent is actually what you received from the insurance company. And there's a disconnect there. And then what happens when you find out, it is too late. Because say you go ahead and submit You get this demand letter, you have insurance, going back to my original example, and then you go ahead and submit that to your insurance company as a claim. The adjuster will look at it and they'll look at the claim and compare it to your policy. And if it's covered, if it's a covered event, then they'll take over the defense. They'll send you, yes, we're going to retain this law firm, and they'll cover the defense. But they'll look at the exclusions as well. Lately, what I'm finding out is that when we submit the claims from our clients from various types of, claims that come from our clients, I'm finding out that many of them are denied due to the exclusions. And my clients say, I thought I was covered. I applied for that. And it says not. And I had a situation recently, it's a few months ago, in which my client does, some general contracting, and they do some repairs, but the policy only covered plumbing. Even though they requested from the agent to be able to do minor repairs to commercial properties. But the agent failed to include a more broader definition of repairs. So they were at this establishment doing some repairs, not necessarily plumbing. They were not even near where the incident occurred. So this lady was actually walking through this establishment, and apparently she slipped and fell. She fell, and they were doing some construction. Not my client, somebody else. There were various contractors in the same location, and apparently there was some type of ditch which was covered with a carpet, and she tripped there and fell. My client was somewhere else doing different repairs. So my client was nowhere to be around, in that vicinity, nor my client was involved on creating that ditch which was covered with a carpet. Yet my client was the defendant on a lawsuit because happens to be in that vicinity. And in cases like this, what happened when you have plaintiff's counsel, sometime they go very broad and sue anybody who was there present to see who they can tag for damages. Granted, my client has defenses because the client had nothing to do with the injury, was not the proximate cause of the injury, could not have foreseen it. There was no duty to that individual because my client was nowhere around. So there are a lot of different elements there that this particular plaintiff did not meet. The unfortunate part here is that we submitted the claim to the insurance company, which should have been defended at the very least. But because the policy only covered plumbing, and they were not doing, in this establishment, they were not doing any plumbing work, they denied coverage for this lawsuit. It is not fair, but this is what happened. So my client now has to defend the lawsuit out of his own pocket, which could be prohibitive. So it is important as you look at the policies that when you receive the policy, just go ahead and take a look at it to make sure that what you requested to be covered is also included in this policy. And pay special attention to the exclusions of what is not included. So I just want to make sure that you take a look at that. Your landlord most likely is going to require what is called a certificate of insurance. Okay, what is called a COI. So your landlord will have a certificate of insurance naming him as an additional insured. So in the case that he gets a claim from someone as a result of some alleged injury in your business, then your landlord will be able to submit a claim to your insurance company as well. So that's very common. And the way to get a certificate of insurance, you call your insurance agent or you call your carrier, and they'll provide you one. So just to basically show that you have you're covered, you have coverage for that time period. So that is, your first line of defense, getting that proper insurance coverage. And often I get a question, so Rich, I want a contract that I want to make sure I don't get sued. And it's difficult to do that, to prevent lawsuits at all. It's very difficult. So your best line of defense is having a good contract to reduce the likelihood of insurance, so you have clarity as to what services you're going to provide and what you're going to charge for, but also having the proper insurance coverage to make sure that in the event that you get sued, you have some insulation and you have a carrier that will cover that particular claim, and you can go on with your business, and the only thing you'll be liable for will be your deductible. As you're selecting your policy, when you get your proposal, you'll have a number of options. You have various deductibles that you can, in the various policy limits. So just take a look at that. Sometimes getting a higher deductible will reduce your premiums, and you just gotta, make that determination. The lower the deductible, most likely the higher your premiums are going to be. So I will say, look more of a middle ground, and sometimes a higher deductible will give you greater coverage. And, if you're going to spend some money in legal fees, consider a little bit of higher deductible just to have greater coverage. So and also you have less premiums that way. Because fortunately, this won't happen every day. So it's when those rare occurrences that you might have either a demand letter, a threat of litigation, or an actual lawsuit. Another one that that is important, and I'm going to skip through my outline here a little bit, is workers' compensation insurance. If you have 4 or more employees in Florida, you're required to have workers' compensation insurance. So it is essential that you have that. Now, people try to get around that by saying, well, everybody's an independent contractor, or I don't have employees, I only have 1099 employees, quote unquote, which I've said before repeatedly throughout my podcast. There's no such thing as 1099 employees. They're the W-2 employees, or they're independent contractors. Now, the independent contractors, and I did a podcast some time ago about how the government classifies independent contractors. It's a very broad definition. But as a rule of thumb, if you're setting the hours for this individual working for you, you're providing the tools and equipment for this individual to work for you as well. Say you provide uniforms in some cases, okay? You can decide to hire or fire this individual at any time. The individual works exclusively for you. Most likely this individual is an employee. Okay, so, in trying to misclassify employees or individuals, or misclassify employees for the purpose of trying to avoid A, paying payroll taxes, and B, trying to not to pay workers' compensation, it could be a devastating mistake for your business. And I'll tell you why. Say you have this, you have a staffing company that provides nursing services, say nursing aides, throughout South Florida, like many of them that I have here, that they're available here. and say your nurse aide goes to the place of the assignment that you give him, this particular home, to do the work. Say this, she gets into a car accident while she was working for you. It was an assignment. You set the hours. You set the schedule. You pay, quote unquote, a salary, but you don't withhold taxes. Okay? That person is representing you. And then so the person gets into a car accident. You have an issue of the car insurance that she may have, and say, well, what were you doing? Was this for work or was this, personal? And then you might have the employee has to go to a hospital. They're going to ask the question, was this for work or personal? I say, well, it was for work. Okay, who's the employer? Okay, and very likely they're going to send you a letter saying this is something that should be covered workers' comp. Worse yet, the employee has some injuries and then goes to a personal injury attorney to try to, collect hospital bills, but also the person is going to be out of work for a few months. God forbid the person has permanent injuries. You have no workers' comp. You get this demand letter. That's I alluded before, telling you that you owe maybe $200,000. They're demanding from you for potential life-threatening injuries. It's going to be out of work for maybe 6 months to a year, pain and suffering, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, the person might need surgery as well. The employee might need surgery. So, and they ask for copies of your workers' compensation policy. You don't have one. What's going to happen in this case, then you're going to submit your general liability policy, which very likely is not going to cover that. So they're going to look at you as the business owner personally for these damages. Now, there are advantages of having workers' comp policy. Yes, it's going to cost some money. Okay, number one, it's required you have over four employees in Florida. Number two, by having this policy, there are exceptions and there are protections that you have because there are specific maximum benefits that the workers' comp policy will pay. So it is a very, for the cost that you're paying, it gives you tremendous level of protection, but also it gives you some exceptions as well. And I'll go over into that in more detail at a different time, maybe bring a workers' comp attorney to discuss that. But does the statute protect you providing that you have workers' comp policy? So I highly recommend if you have more than, even if you have one employee, get workers' comp. Okay? It is not worth the risk of having you being personally liable for any, hospital bills, any any type of medical bills, and also any pain and suffering, any type of injuries that employee might suffer as a result of working for you while they're on the job for not having a policy. So I highly recommend to look into that, simply because it also covers lost wages, disability benefits. There are tremendous benefits to having one. So I do recommend you getting that as well. And even if you have one employee, certainly consider getting one. Now I want to talk a little bit about another part of it, another insurance policy that I do recommend is professional liability policy or errors and omission policy. Usually you have that with professionals. You have basically in any type of trade, industry, any type of anything that requires skills, you can have professional liability policy. And it's basically what it covers, exactly what it means. And it's also commonly known as malpractice insurance. No one is perfect, and people make mistakes. It happens. So these policies are designed to cover when those mistakes happen. And it varies from profession to profession and the various risks that the insurance company is taking. Protects you claims against negligence, mistakes, failure to perform duties. You have that. Accountants usually have it. Attorneys usually have it. You have contractors, advertising agencies, name it. So anything that requires some type of trader skill or professional skill, usually I recommend to consider having one, looking into it, just because, again, no one is perfect. Things can happen. And if you get some type of demand letter, it's good to have a carrier. You make a phone call, you put in a claim, and have the carrier assist you with that particular claim. And again, you're basically asking the question, how much will this cost me? Yeah, insurance costs money, okay? But what you're trying to create is an environment of, to the best that you can, of insulating yourself from potential catastrophic liability coming to you as a result of not having the proper coverage. If you have the proper coverage in insurance, then what you're liable for is the deductible that you would have to pay if the claim is accepted by the insurance company and they take over the defense of the claim. And there are two parts here. Okay, the insurance company, the carrier will handle the defense of the claim. They have a duty to defend, and that's what you're paying for. Now, there might be a situation that says, we will defend you, but we're not going to indemnify you. We're not going to pay any damages. And they might have different criteria for that, because the duty to defend is a little broader than the duty to indemnify. But the defense is really key. When a plaintiff's counsel sees that is an insurance defense firm who is handling the case, it changes things. Because they already know that this insurance defense firm already does this every single day. They're used to handling these types of claims. And the insurance company might be willing to provide some type of indemnity and payment to try to settle the case. So it is worth having it. It's worth having a discussion with your insurance broker about the types of policies that are beyond the general liability policy, that are cover more specific acts directly related to your business. If you're a manufacturer, okay, I want to talk about product liability policy. It's important to have it if you are manufacturing some type of product, whether it's something that the product is used by other businesses or used by other consumers, or something that is edible. You definitely want to have product liability policy, or something that is applied to the body, like shampoo, for example. People could put in a claim that they were allergic to it, or they got some burns. So especially dealing with the public, and you're manufacturing a product that is consumed, you're dealing with every single one that utilizes the product could be a potential plaintiff. So when you look at that versus the cost of having some protection in the event there's a claim that there's a defective product, it's a no-brainer, because you will have then the assurances that you have some protection in the event that something like that happens. So I would definitely recommend to look at a product liability policy if you are manufacturing some type of product, so that way you have your risk management assessment made, and also reduces your risk, your exposure, so to speak, of having a claim and then you have to come out of pocket to defend it. Another policy I want to talk to you about is that a buy-sell policy. This one is when you have a business partners, for example, that, you know, in the event one passes, then they have life insurance on each other. And the purpose of that is that you already have in the operating agreement, which we talked about, I highly recommend to have one if you have a partner, is to have that you have a mechanism in place that if there's an event that one partner passes, the mechanism is already in place for the other partner to purchase the other partner's interest with the proceeds of the life insurance, and vice versa. So you have that mechanism in place, and that allows the business to continue, but also the partner doesn't have to come out of pocket to pay the estate to purchase the interest. It is already established, and it's already the mechanism and the system is already in place. And that's done through the partnership agreement to the operating agreement, that you purchase this insurance, and the insurance broker can help you with that in creating a buy-sell type of policy to purchase the interest of the other partner. Another policy I want to talk to you about as well is a business interruption insurance. That one is in the event that you have a situation that you're not able to run your business or go into your premises. Say, for example, you have a hurricane, you have a flood, and you got to make sure that's not excluded, of course, that say you cannot open your business, say, for 2 months. And years ago, I mean, we had Hurricane Wilma here in South Florida, in Broward, where businesses were shut down for a number of months. Yet you still got to pay the rent. But how are you going to continue paying the rent when you have no revenue? If you're a restaurant, you cannot open. So having a business interruption insurance would help you with that. Even if you have a flood in your business, you're shut down for a month, for example. This will allow you to continue paying wages, paying your rent, paying your expenses. So that's something that to consider having as well. And again, everything, like anything we do in small businesses, we prioritize. We prioritize what we need and what we want to have. So this is no different. Your general liability policy you will need. Not only something that if you're leasing a place, you will need that policy because your landlord will require it. And in some cases, I've seen lease agreements that the landlord requires a business interruption insurance as well. So if you have a lease agreement, then my recommendation is to send that lease to your insurance broker. So the insurance broker will tell you, okay, these are the policies that we could have, you can have, and then, and you can upgrade as well to different policies. And there are a number of policies as well that I have not even mentioned. I mean, you have your key man insurance policy in the case you have a key man in your, they call it key man, but it could be a key woman, obviously. An important employee in the company that maybe is a minority shareholder, and you can have that type of policy where there's a lot of consent, a lot of permissions you got to have for that about putting a policy on an employee, but that's actually exists. There's cyber liability policy in the case there's some type of hacking if you're dealing with sensitive information and you get hacked, you get ransomware. There are policies to cover that as well. Again, this is not a comprehensive look at every policy available, but it's something that you should need to take a look at because there are more policies beyond the general liability policy. My recommendation is to talk to your insurance broker. If you don't have one in Florida, I can refer you to one. So to at the very least talk about what insurances do I need for my business. And again, this is not considered, this it's just really informational purposes. I want to make sure we understand each other under here, because I don't sell insurance. I'm not selling you. I don't provide that service, but I know enough to tell you that these are areas, policies, insurance policies that you should consider for the purpose of protecting your businesses. That's very important, because oftentimes I get calls for people that get sued, and they have no policy, and it's difficult to deal with, because it is very common that the legal problem that a business owner faces exceeds their ability to pay. I'm going to repeat that. It's very common to have, the legal the financial requirements of a business problem very often exceeds the business owner's ability to pay. Small business owners have to survive every day. Very seldom they have a litigation budget set aside. In fact, most don't. In fact, I have not met anyone in 20 years of practice and speaking with thousands of business owners that have funds set aside in the case they get sued. That's just what insurance is for. So if you don't have insurance, you're on your own. You got to tap into credit lines. You got to tap into your own savings, or give up. And the way you can prevent that or reduce that likelihood is through proper insurance. So if you have a takeaway here today, is that if you're not properly insured, not insured, or underinsured, take a look at your policies, discuss it with your business broker, your insurance broker, and make sure that you have the proper policies to protect your business. And in the event that you have a situation where a claim or demand is made of you to pay a certain amount of money because of some alleged injury, you already have a mechanism in place to make that phone call and submit the claim, as opposed to coming out of pocket for the defense of that claim or lawsuit. So this is good for today. Again, this is episode 118 of the Business SOS podcast. I appreciate you listening today. Again, if you want to reach me, my email is rich@richsierra.com. Again, it's rich@richsierra.com. Before I forget, I want to thank my listener, Violet, for suggesting this episode. I appreciate it, Violet. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to check out our legal services, my website is floridasmallbusinesslegalcenter.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram at FSB Legal. If you want to check out my book, Business SOS, E-commerce Legal Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You could ask for it at your local bookstores as well. If you want to watch the video of this podcast, we're youtube.com/@RichardSierra. Until next week, this is Rich Sierra. And remember that my goal is to help you succeed.